Greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, aka Mr. Just the Facts. Family, hit the like button, share this out. Today we are going to, just have a little brief discussion about the open session that the OMB is having, and we want to talk a little bit about race and ethnicity and some of the things that we are trying to push and get done, especially in accordance with our understanding as reparationists and this reparations work. So share the video out and hit the thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up. We're gonna get the channel back active. Just been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, family, and it's been consuming a lot of our time. So and things are getting done. Things are definitely getting done. So we got Brother Ali. We're waiting for Brother Josh to come on now. So what I want to do is I want to pull up the article. And Ali, if you want to say something before I do that.
Well, what article are you pulling up?
The OMB article, which from the
Oh,
White
okay.
House.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, yeah. No, I was actually pulling up a couple of articles myself. Some things from the 1980s because I want to kind of address a couple of things with regard to this identity crisis. It's this identity issue, man, that our people have. But anyway, um, yeah. So that's uh that's it, man. I see you got it up.
All right, so I'm gonna just read through it, and because I want people to understand what we're talking about and why I call this lightning in the bottle. I've already spoken with folks from other reparationist organizations, and for the most part, we are in alignment on this. And one of the things that we want to try to do is clear up some of the confusion. This is well, I'm on the wrong thing. This right here is important because they don't make revisions to the OMB's racial classifications under Federal Directive 15 until 20 years after the first year it was introduced in 1977. The next one after that was 97. The next one after that was 2017. So, right, this is what I call lightning in the bottle right now. The fact that they are not waiting for the next 20 years to make these changes says, it says a lot. It's in alignment with what we're calling providence, as certain things appear to align for us as American freedmen in this country. So let me read this. This was published August 30th, 2022, just not too long ago, last week, basically. And this is by Dr. Karen Orvis, Chief Statistician of the United States. It says the first step in the formal review process for OMB's statistical standards for collecting race and ethnicity data is well underway, and the public can now share their perspectives and input. What we are reviewing in June, the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, announced that my office will begin formal review to revise OMB's Statistical Policy Directive number 15. Now, for those that have been rocking with us for, I mean, who knows how long, we've been touching on Federal Directive 15 since at least 2009, right? We've been aware of these racial classifications, how they're being used and misused for the most part. And that has become evident today. And we heard with Chemerinsky, the law professor, when he gave his testimony at the task force for California's reparations hearings, so that race based anything is going to be a problem. And that's what our focus here is. It's dealing with us as an ethnic group. And we're going to get into,
Absolutely.
yeah, as we're going to get into the African American thing. We did a video on this topic as well. And I know that those that follow the channel, I think we were able to help clear some things up in that regard, but we may touch on some of those things again a little later. So, Federal Directive number 15, standards for maintaining, collecting, and presenting federal data on race and ethnicity. This directive provides minimum standards that ensure the federal government's ability to compare race and ethnicity information and data across federal agencies, and also helps us to understand how well federal programs serve a diverse America. How the process works. Earlier this year, I convened an intra agency technical working group of federal government career staff representing over 20 agencies across the federal government, including almost every CFO Act agency and recognized statistical agency that collect or use race and ethnicity data, as well as the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Like, we have to understand how huge this is. The working group has begun the important work of developing a set of recommendations for improving the quality and usefulness of federal race and ethnicity data. The working group will evaluate relevant research, engage in a meaningful way with the American public and all impacted agencies, and develop recommendations on topics including but not limited to whether the minimum reporting categories should be changed and how to best address detailed race and ethnicity groups in the standards. All of these are important to us. Number two, whether updates should be made to the question format, and it should be. We seen that with the 2020 census. Terminology and wording of the questions, as well as the instructions for respondents and associated guidance, and whether guidance for the collection and reporting of race and ethnicity data can be improved, including in instances when self identification is not possible. This, all three of these points work for us in so many ways, but we have to be actively engaged and involved in the process, which is why we called the meeting last Sunday, because we want to try to get some cohesiveness and uniformity on how we should approach this this session and our place in it insofar as an ethnic group is concerned, because we are the only people listed in that in Federal Directive 15 and those five racial categories that are not viewed as a legal ethnic group. Would you agree with that, brother Ali?
Yeah, what they've done, and I'm gonna show something at a certain point. I'm gonna show an image of something that comes from this book that speaks about the usage of the term African American, and what the purpose of it was as it relates to its usage for our group specifically as the descendants of former slaves, etc., in this country. So, yeah, the problem is that they grouped black and they put black and African American together as being one thing, and we know that black was always used as a racial classification for multiple groups of people. It wasn't just for one particular group, right? That racial classification was applied by Europeans to multiple dark skinned people, which is why we've seen the Latin form of it, Negro, even applied to certain Native Americans. So the fact of the matter is, this is not an indigenous name, black or Negro or colored or mulatto. None of those things are indigenous names. These are names that the oppressive class imposed on the people that they were oppressing in order to erase the memory of what their true ethnic ancestral names actually were. Okay, it's akin to the scene from Roots, when, if anybody remembers the episode of Roots, when they caught Kunta Kinte and forced him into the name Toby. It's akin to that. It really is pretty much the same thing that happened. And so, as much as we love and have grown to love and admire and revere this new name, Black, because Black is a new name. It's not a. It's not a. In terms of the mass usage of it, it's a new name. It's not a name that the people always wanted to use. I can remember my grand uncle telling me that he hated the word black. He hated the word black. My grand uncle was born somewhere around the turn of the century, somewhere around 1900. Okay, and he hated the term black and told me don't ever let nobody call you. He told me that don't you ever let nobody call you black, because a lot of those older heads who went under the name Negro regarded black as a pejorative. They did not like the terminology black. Okay, there was as a matter of fact, there was um, a survey that was done, and the one of the brothers from Murakush actually found it and posted it, where it was talking about. I think it was back in the either the 1920s or 30s.
Hmm.
It was a survey that was done amongst a bunch of the freedmen class, right? They was asking the freedmen people what name did they want to go by, and they listed Negro, they listed Black, they listed Afro American, they listed I think Africo American, they listed Moorish American, they listed a bunch of things, and overwhelmingly the people at that time overwhelmingly chose the name Negro. So that is the name that they the older generation were used to up until somewhere around somewhere around the 60s, with the the with the push from, I would say, probably more coming from the Nation of
Listen,
Islam, and
then James
and
Brown.
then James Brown's record
Hmm.
"Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud." But there's plenty of documentation of even Dr. King using the terminology Negro. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, sometimes they use black. I know that Du Bois had a book called The Souls of Black Folk, but that was something, that was a term that was rarely used and seen and revered by many as a pejorative, as a form of disrespect. They didn't like that. And so this use of black is actually a modern usage. It's a modern usage in terms of its application in a wide scale sense. So it is really not that much older than African American as a wide scale use. Maybe got African American beat by 20 something odd years, not by very much, to be honest with you.
That's
So
right.
that's just a little brief
And,
of it. Hmm.
and technically, African American goes back in early usage to the 1700s in this country, right?
That's a
So
fact. It's
you
been
know,
shown, yeah.
mhm. And we that's like there's a reason why we're having this discussion in the way that we're having it. The purpose is not to deride the term black or African American, two terms that I particularly do not care for. Like I tell people all the time, you will never convince me that my brown skin is black. I've been saying that for the past 12, 13 years. I have a
Facts.
I have a long record
As
of
a matter
saying.
of fact, because Faze, I was just telling y'all, DJ Faze was trying to
Hmm.
call me while we was on the phone. So what I'm gonna
Hmm.
do is, because he's of the same mindset. Like
Hmm.
he hates when he sees me use the term black. He's like, brother, we not black people. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I use the term black
And he's
because
not
that is
wait, he's not in no Moorish group or nothing like that, right?
no,
No.
not at
Okay.
all. He's a
All right.
black spade.
He's a
He's a
black
black
spade.
spade.
That's
He's
right.
one of the foundational cats with regard to hip hop. coming
That's
out of
right.
Bronxdale Project. So no, he's not no Moorish guy. But so yeah, I was just saying to him, I use black to because this is the common term that most of us use, right? We know that that's what it is, and so just to avoid, hassle and to be able to have a dialogue where everybody understands each other, I just use the term. I know that my brown skin is not black. I can see that. I know that the people from, but never mind. You already know where I'm going, man. Come on. So
Brother
you go ahead.
Ali and Brother Naheem,
No, go
can
ahead,
I
Josh.
just ask y'all a question?
Sure.
Because you said your skin is not black, it's brown. But if you're saying that, then obviously it's not meant to be color a description of the color of your skin because they call somebody like me who is light bright, team light skin or whatever, they call me black as well. And and my racial category is black as well. So if it's not about skin color and it's and if they say it's not anthropological or scientific in nature, then really what is the reason why we're calling people black? Is it because we can go back, we can go and break down the science of that, as it pertains to other meanings that is a means of degrading you. Um, but I guess maybe we want to touch on that. Go ahead.
Well, I'll say, it's funny that you start with that. I wrote a paper back in 2014, and I shared it when we touched on this topic of some months back when we had brother Chris Larson come on. And in the paper, I kind of joke about the term light skinned black person. Right? It's like, what is that? What is a light skinned black person?
Yeah, how do you have light black?
But look, right, is what's also funny about it is I use the terminologies that we use growing up in the hood. You see a sister, be like, "Ooh, that sister is a red bone," right? "Ooh, she high yellow." It's like, okay, well, red and yellow, how does that still become black? and,
You
and
red, black, and yellow black,
red, black, and yellow black. So
and
black is
Negro black.
and Negro black. So you know that what we're doing here is we're talking to the issue of this racial classification. You want to say something, Ali?
Oh, no, 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 no. You go ahead.
Yeah, and I definitely want you to come in and go in on what Josh was saying as well. I'm gonna wrap up. We're touching on the racial classification system, black in particular, because this was something that was given to us, and we know that people have an emotional connection to it. I remember when I first got into the Moorish movement, it was years ago. My mother was like, "You ain't gonna tell me I ain't black. I don't give a what you say. I'm black, mother." You know what I'm saying? It's just that emotional connection to it, and I, never tried to convince her afterwards because I understood that there were people that is just like Negro. Ali spoke about a poll that was shared not too long ago, and back in those days, overwhelmingly people chose the name Negro. You couldn't call people black back in those days because it was offensive. It is the origins of the term, with your black ass, yo black ass. So every time you hear that terminology, that was derogatory back in the days. That's why it was said, and that's why it lasts until this day. And it's said in a in a certain type of way, right? And the comeback is usually, well, you could kiss my black ass, right? So, um, yeah, Ali, Josh has asked the interesting question of basically about him being light skinned, and I folded in the term red bone and high yellow. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, we know when you start looking at Blumenbach and what's the other guy? It was like three of these guys. At least these Europeans, right? what I call the colorized racial classification system was something that was invented by Europeans, right? And they invented it as a form of a hierarchical kind of totem pole kind of thing, where they put this white thing at the top and the black thing at the bottom, right? Because the black thing was something that was used to describe the slave class in society. Interestingly, right, there's a book called Ancient and Modern Britons by a man named David McRitchie. And one of the things that he talked about in the book was the fact that in Europe they used black, because black is an English word, right, of Germanic root. They used the word black. Let me just say this: black is an English word of Germanic root, where the English language itself is considered a Germanic language, because the Anglo people are members of what's called the Teutonic tribes or the Germanic tribes. And so the language that they speak, English, is considered a Germanic language. And so the word black has its root in a Germanic word. Uh, it goes back even before that to the Proto Indo European word Bleg. And I know you mentioned that before, Naheem. Bleg was a Proto Indo European word, and it was actually a verb that meant to burn. To burn. It's cognate, and it has a relationship to the word Ethiop. The word Ethiop, which means burnt face. It is the word Ethiop is a contraction of two words, athene and the word op. The word athene means burn, and the word op means face. And
This is in
so,
the Greek.
yeah, yes. It's of Greek origin. And so what we are seeing is the Greeks attempt to describe certain people and certain things, because believe it or not, the word Ethiop can be applied not only to people but to anything where the surface or the face of the thing has been burnt. So when they say burnt face, that the word Ethiop means burnt face or burnt surface, they're talking about not only people but anything where the surface or the face of the thing has been burnt. So that can apply to anything, people or things. So the truth of the matter is, what we're listening to is an ancient way that certain Greeks were trying to describe certain blacks or certain Africans, people of the African continent, as being burnt on the surface, or their, like the surface of their body was burnt, or their skin was burnt to the complexions that they are burnt by the sun. This is what it is. And so that's pseudo. The people's skin was not burnt to the complexions that they were. That's a pseudo thing. But that was in their ignorance how they were trying to describe these people that they had encountered on the African continent. These people are dark like this because they must be burnt by the sun. Because look what happens to us when we get in the sun. Our skin does what? It starts to burn. We get darker, whatever the case. So they assume that the people on the African continent, the surface of their skin was burnt to the complexions that they are. What you then have is Arabic speakers who turn around and do the same thing. They come into Africa. They name a portion of the African continent Bilad as Sudan, which means the land of the blacks. We've talked about this before. And I know a lot of people feel like black is an American thing. That's our thing. That's our thing. No, the truth of the matter is the people being called black were the people on the African continent being called black long before the Atlantic slave trade even took place. Right?
Uh,
And because it was
uh,
being done in other language. It was first done in Greek with the word Aethiop, which was
real
a
quick, Ali.
mhm.
What about the word Negro? How far does that go back?
Negro goes back into the Latin languages too, prior
About
to the Atlantic slave trade coming
about
over this way.
about the 1300s, correct?
That's right. That's right. Because you had the Latin speakers calling, again, people of the African continent, calling them Negroes. And the name Negro had two applications. One was as a description of the people's complexion, meaning dark or black. The other one was as a description of their status as a slave. The term Negro was synonymous with slave. This is it. It's, we could say, first of all, we could say that Negro is not negative, but the fact of the matter is, it's a name that was imposed on people who already had their own names, right? And it had two connotations to the speakers of the language from which that word comes. One was a description of their skin complexion. The second was that of a slave. The name Negro has a synonym for it being a name for an enslaved group of people or a slave person. This is a historically documented thing. So that's the way they used it. But see, the thing about it is, these people who they were calling those names actually had their own names. The problem is the Europeans who were calling them Negroes, the Europeans who were calling them Sudan, the Europeans who were calling them Ethiop, you understand, they didn't respect the fact that these people had their own names, and so they renamed them with what they wanted to call them. Now, we can say today that we love these names. We can say that we built up social capital under these names, but the fact of the matter is, those names were being used on people of the African continent before the Atlantic slave trade even happened. That's just a fact. The first people, right? The first people to be called black were the Moors, right? This is where you get the term blackamoor. The etymology tells you this. If you go into the etymology of it, you'll see that the first usage of the word black against dark skinned people, that particular word, BLACK, was with the terminology blackamoor, as they were speaking about people of the African continent with this particular descriptor. This is a historical fact. That pull up anybody who wants to see what this is, pull up the etymology. The etymology is the study of words and the history and usage of the words and how they change in terms of their connotations and denotations over time. The etymology also gives you dates and timelines. The fact of the matter is, blackamoor is the first time you see the word, the Germanic English word black, being applied against any people. So, I mean, as a racial classification in the United States for the enslaved groups or the oppressed population, they first started calling the people Negroes. And the reason that that happened is because the Latin speakers were the first Europeans to act as colonizers and the ones who began to engage in the slave trade first, the Spaniards and the Portuguese. Right? There's a book, and I think we kind of showed it. We didn't really go into it. There's a book called The Discovery of America is an Outgrowth of the Conquest of the Moors by the Spaniards. This is a book published back in like the 1800s or something, Naheem?
Something like that.
Something like that. And so the fact of the matter is, the Spaniards and the Portuguese come out of Europe. There's a Portuguese historian that they called a chronicler at the time by the name of Azarara, right? And Azarara basically breaks down, from his perspective, the history of what they call the conquest of Guinea. And in the conquest of during the conquest of Guinea, what they do, uh, what they were doing by way of the papal bulls that were issued to these people by a couple of the popes of the Catholic Church. One was called the Ilias Qui. We talk about that, the Ilias Key. One was called the Romanus Pontifex. These are papal bulls, and another one's called the divorces. These three in particular are very important with regard to the the how would you say it, the conquest of Christendom over Islam, aka over Africa, over Guinea, the conquest of Guinea, because this Atlantic slave trade thing starts as a battle between Christians and Muslims. It turns into a thing of these Christians taking people, regardless of religion or ethnic background. It turns into a thing of them taking people from Africa and bringing them into Europe and then into the Americas. But it started out as a battle between Christian and Muslims. So, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that everybody is a Moor. That's not. I think. I think. I think what I'm saying is being misunderstood. But the fact of the matter is, if you're looking at the first usage of the word black, you must look for the etymology. The etymology tells you the history of the word. This is something we've known for a long time. The first usage of the word black was against the Moors with the terminology blackamoor. Pull up the etymology to tell you this, right? This is before there was anything in America, before the Europeans even really came to America. They was already using the term blackamoor, right? They weren't here like that. So that's that. But like I said before that, you had you had Sudan, right, which the Arabic speakers used to call the people Sudan or Sud, because the root of the word Sudan is Sud, which means black or to blacken. Before that, you had Ethiopia.
And that's the English, the anglicized version of that is soot, right?
Soot. Yes, soot. So now, in any case, what we're talking about is the usage of the word black as it relates to us. Black is a name that replaced any other name that you had, whether it was a Native American. For those who believe they are largely Native Americans, whatever Native American names that was there for their tribes or their nations, if you are now a person who is classified racially as black, that was to replace whatever Native American name you had. Same thing with anybody of African ancestry. Whatever ethnic names of the people that got together to create your family lineage, whether like I always say, whether that's Wolof, whether that is Fulani, whether that is Hausa, whether that's Mandinka, whatever it is, those names get erased. You get amalgamated between these various African ethnic groups, between Europeans who are, are the colonizers here and some Native American, and they get, they mix all of this stuff up, and you become this new group of amalgamated people,
And let
right?
me add one piece to that too. It's not
Hmm.
just you just mixed up, yeah, that's part of it, but it's you we were bred systematically on plantations, and there was a whole industry during the domestic slave era. Yes, there was some mixing and all that kind of stuff that was happening, but there was a lot of breeding between groups to create a new people. And I won't say to create a new people, but the result of that was creating new people. I mean, you had some situations on plantations where the slave master was doing the breeding and he was selling his children. And those people go through generations and they get with other people who went through the same situation or some other situation. So these are all what we call today, especially the after emancipation through various means, and then officially all all of the formerly enslaved emancipated through the uh, uh, um, what is it called? presidential, what is the president's executive order of the Emancipation Proclamation, and then officially through the 13th Amendment, solidified through the 13th Amendment. These are all what we call freedmen, American freedmen today. But that's getting into what we were trying to get into later. I just wanted to add the piece about it wasn't just a mixing, it was also a breeding. That was an intentional thing and a systematic thing.
Facts. Facts. So, sorry for the background noise, fam. So anyway, yeah, it's not a debate on whether or not you should call yourself black. I don't care. I don't care, right? I keep telling people I'm not here to do race work. I'm not interested in doing race work for whatever the reason, right? With regard to what Erwin Chemerinsky had to say, and the Supreme Court has to say about race-based legislation and policy, trying to address that is difficult when you're dealing with people who don't really understand that and why it is that you're approaching this stuff the way that you're approaching it, right? We're approaching this whole identity issue based on the fact that we understand that we're reparationists, number one. Let's just put that out there. We're reparationists, number one, which is why we will work with our California family to help get legislation passed out there in California. That's real stuff. Peace to the Cali crew. We love y'all. Honored to have honored to have been able to work with y'all on that because that's powerful. That's groundbreaking stuff. That's like historical, like Mike Tyson would say, historical monumental stuff that took place, right? And we was a part of that. So it's not like we don't understand what it is that we're talking about. We already made certain maneuvers and to show and prove, right? This is not like really like this is not guesswork at this point. Like some we're talking about has merit and it's based on the fact that the top constitutional law professor in the country has already consulted with the California Reparations Task Force and has raised the issue of the unconstitutionality of race-based legislation and policy, right? So we already understand that. So the thing is, for us, as we came into the knowledge of this American freedman status, we viewed it as a way to deal with not only the race question, how we can deal with the issue of reparations without having to engage in a racial conversation, but at the same time also being able to use something that is historically and legally rooted in this country's record, this country's legislation, to delineate and to actually point directly to the proper beneficiaries of any federal reparations program that this Congress could adopt in the form of any in the form under any legislation, right? That's what this is about. It's for us a way to disaggregate or to separate blackness based on the families of the people who acquired this status via emancipation through the 13th Amendment. And why do I keep saying the 13th Amendment as opposed to the Emancipation Proclamation? Well, the reason that I keep saying the 13th Amendment as opposed to the Emancipation Proclamation is because the 13th Amendment is the supreme law of the land. You got to understand the difference between executive action and those types of proclamations that only occurred during the Civil War period. That type of proclamation was only used during the Civil War period. But the fact of the matter is, the supreme law of the land is the United States Constitution. The 13th Amendment is the supreme law of the land. And not only did the 13th Amendment, as the supreme law of the land, change these people's status legally from slave to freed men and women, it also authorizes Congress the power to eradicate all badges and incidents of slavery. So the 13th Amendment is a powerful piece of the United States Constitution, i.e., the supreme law of the land. It's not an executive action, it's the supreme law of the land, right? So that's what this is about. We're trying to show people, we're trying to show people who are caught up in race conversations that that's a dead end street. We already know we can't use it. So me personally, I'm not really even concerned with the racial classification of blackness like that. That's why you don't even really hear me talking about it. You never really hear me talking about blackness. Me personally, none of us, because we know that as reparationists, we got to keep this. I got to keep saying this because I don't know that everybody that's speaking or that is trying to be involved in certain things are actually reparationists. I don't know that they actually are. So people are speaking with different kinds of agendas. Our agenda is reparations, federal reparations, whatever that federal reparations encompasses, whether that's land grants, whether that's business grants, whether that is home ownership, whatever it,
Direct cash payments.
direct cash payments, whatever that is, that's what we are about, right? So sometimes I think other people have other agendas, which is fine, but it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. It may seem the same, but it's not necessarily the same thing. And so when you deal with race without understanding that you can't even use it to get where you're going, it kind of becomes like a, um, exercise in futility. I don't even want to really waste a bunch of time doing that because I know that we can't use it. We can't use it. So that's my spiel, brothers. I didn't mean to go that long like that, but
Well, let me. What I want to do is I want to like this racial, and I'm glad we're having this discussion, right? Because, like I said, we've been studying this for years. We've been up on books like Theodore W. Allen's The Invention of the White Race, volumes 1 and volumes 2 for years. We've cited this information in our works. The Mustafa Hefny case. I mean, I have that in a video going back to 2011 when they told this brother who thought he was a black man that he can't just waltz in from Africa claiming to be black. According to the United States of America, he was white. And he fought and fought and fought. And that may be some of what is driving this new push by Arab Americans to be recognized as their own group from under whiteness. Because in the racial classification of white under Federal Directive 15, it says any person having any origins of the original peoples of the Middle East as well. Arab Americans are fighting against that with what is called MENA, right? That's the classification that they are trying to insert, MENA, Middle Eastern or North African. So let me go to this excellent work right here that y'all have seen me cite several times on Be the Power, White by Law by Ian Haney Lopez. And what he's doing here is he's speaking to the prerequisite cases. There are 5 racial classifications in the United States for a reason, and it goes back to the German racists like Johann Blumenbach, etc., who recognized 5 races of men. So, in this court date of Ayup, 1878, the Supreme Court held, in speaking of the various classification of races, Webster in his dictionary says, quote, the common classification is that of Blumenbach, who makes 5, the Caucasian or white race, to which belongs the greater part of European nations and those of Western Asia. 2, the Mongolian or yellow race, occupying Tartary, China, Japan, etc. 3, the Ethiopian or Negro, black race, occupying all of Africa except the North. And we see that reflected in Federal Directive 15 today in some degree. 4, the American or red race, containing the Indians of North and South America. And 5, the Malay or brown race. Brown was a racial designation that was confined to people that came from Malaysia and places like that. And somehow it became a designation for Mexicans and Puerto Ricans and Hispanics in the United States of America, although their skin tones are not brown or what's called in Spanish moreno. Many believe that word moreno means black, but if you look up its original meaning, moreno means brown. This is research that
And
we've done.
that is a rendering of the word more.
That is a rendering of the word more, exactly. It says the brown race. It says this division was adopted by Buffon with some changes in names and is found on the combined characteristics of complexion, hair, and skull. Y'all know the old false phrenology science, pseudoscience. No one includes the white or Caucasian race with the Mongolian or yellow race, right? And I wanted to read that because that has been the standard of how race is recognized in the United States of America. Hence, why it says on the OMB's website, these classifications should not be, based on anything scientific or anthropological. So us calling ourselves black or anybody else calling us black, us calling Europeans or European Americans white, or them calling themselves that, all of this is social. It's all social.
And
In the
pseudo.
book, and pseudo, because I have on a black shirt with the black hat. You can clearly see my beard,
Bro,
and my mustache
we
is black
listen,
up
I
against
know,
my
like,
brown
I know
skin.
people want to debate us on this, would love to debate us on this black thing.
They won't
But the
win.
but the but the fact of the matter is, we done debated people going into dark matter. We
That's
done people done went all the way into dark matter and the
dark
triple stage of blackness with on us with that stuff. We already know everything that you already gonna say. Trust me. With this
everything,
black thing, we done went into
everything.
the Lord of the perfect black in ancient Egypt and everything else, bro. You not listen. You're not gonna say nothing we haven't heard already.
My man in the chat going hard, but it's cool. It's cool. Um, on page 21, the author cites someone named Richard Ford, and I want to read this because it is important. It says, in order, and this is the quote from Richard Ford. I looked him up, when I got the book. I can't remember who or what he is at the moment. It says, in order for the concept of a white race to exist, there must be a black race, which is everything that the white race is not. Red, of course, does not want to be associated with. Thus, the most debased stereotypical attributes of the quote unquote black savage are none other than the guilty projections of white society. This white self regard is at the root of race bigotry in all its forms. It is not a fear of the other, but a fear and loathing of the self. It is not so much the construction of blackness which matters. It is the construction of whiteness as the absence of those demons the white subject must project on to the other, right? So he says, and this is the author now, whatever the language used, it is clear that white identity is tied inextricably to non-white identity as its positive mirror, its superior opposite. So, this issue of, again, I want to stress, we're not trying to dissuade or persuade anybody from we're just explaining some things right now, because I don't know if people really understand the racial constructs that have been hoisted upon us. Like I was explaining, you can see my clearly brown skin against this black shirt and this black hat and my black beard. In these black headphones, you can clearly see. So somebody has played a trick on us, right? Somebody has played a trick on us and convinced us to use our own minds to
And
deceive our own eyes.
bro, you talking about you can clearly see your black skin. You can clearly see my skin ain't nowhere close to even like dark brown.
Bruh.
So it know so we talking about I'm black,
bro.
and
Josh, you
that's what my
just
mama told me. That's what my mama informed the state of Virginia that I was. You know, like come on.
you just raised one of the craziest points, and this ain't no like even. I'm not even trying to be funny, but oftentimes the loudest and the strongest proponents of blackness be the lightest skinned people. You ever notice that, man? It be the it be the people with the lightest skin who go the hardest about this black thing. Like I'm just being
I
100.
was
Like in
just
that,
saying that the other day.
it's just real, yo. Remember Sarah Suit and Seti? Remember that? That dude went the hardest out of everybody about this black thing, and people used to be like, "Yo, he's the lightest dude in here." Like, what is? You know what I'm saying? Like, for whatever reason, yo, I don't know what that is about. I mean, I have an idea in my mind what I think that's about. Why it's that kind of why it seems to be that seems to be the case, but it's the weirdest thing when you think about it, man. The hardest speakers on this black thing be like light skinned people,
I
man.
think let me just say from a light skinned person upbringing or whatever, you know. um, we maybe like we've experienced more questions around race than maybe everybody else
Come on.
because it's when people see you, they just say, "Okay, your ancestry is the Negro." Y'all, I can use the more disparaging word, but that's y'all. That's we can clearly see it. So, but like more light skinned people, they'll be like, some people like, "Are you mixed? Is your mama white?" Is your like, man, what you mean? Like, that's them fighting words, like so like it's we've had to face and probably do more introspection on dealing with race and ethnicity and and then
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff just because there's more questions that are always asked to us, so then we start to ask more questions, and then it's like people are coming at you for for various reasons, or it's the colorism part, then there's the ancestry part, and it's a really interesting conundrum, and it goes back again to like you got to think about like and I don't want to speak for all people that got less melanin that's under the classification of black, but damn, it's a painful thing when you think about your great grandmama that was violated, and her and on multiple sides of your family, and those people were violated, and just like that's a painful thing. That's an angering thing. So I think some of that anger from those ancestors and thinking about what those people went through be fueling some of the why we go hard, and couple that with the things that I mentioned before. But go ahead, Ali. I just wanted to add that
Yeah, no.
perspective.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You know what's interesting because I see some of the comments about the whole Morris thing that you guys are having, in the inbox. One of the things that I don't know if the sister Wani is familiar with the ethno historian Dana Marnici. I don't know if you mentioned her mentioned her Naheem.
Nah,
But I just gonna
go
say
ahead.
I just gonna say this real quick. This woman is the person who, as you say, contributed the ethno history of the Moors to the book The Golden Age of the Moors by Ivan van Sertima. The, Dana Marnici, or Dana Reynolds as she was called at the time, um, we've actually had conversations with her, um, or you've interviewed her, Naheem, at least once or twice. I'm not sure,
She's been
and
on. She's been
twice
on.
you because I know
Yeah,
you
twice.
had her with you on Sarnetta's channel,
And
and you on Moorish
Morris Science
Science,
Radio. That's right.
Moorish Science
That's right.
Radio. Dana Reynolds actually contributed the ethno-history part of the book, The Golden Age of the Moor, right? And one of the things that she points out in numerous articles that she's published is are the names of the principal tribes that comprise the people in history known as the Moors. They're not just people from Mauritania. They're not just people from Morocco. Even there's a video. I'm gonna try to pull it up if I can from Dr. John Henry Clark, speaking about this very same thing, and he talks about how the people known historically as Moors were not just people from Morocco, but also the military force that went into Europe from Africa included people not just from North Africa, but people from West Africa as well, people from Mali, people from other places of that nature. And he actually talks about that. I'm gonna find that video so if we get the chance, we can play it because his little piece where he's talking about that is very short. It's not a long drawn out piece, but he in brief he talks about the fact basically he's saying in brief the thing that Dana Marnici lays out in great detail when she goes into the actual ethnic breakdown of these Moorish so-called Moorish people, because for a lot of people that don't understand, the term Moor also became cognate with the term Muslim. So it depends on how you're looking at the word Moor and in what time period that whether or not the word Moor applies to different people outside of Morocco. So it's not just about Morocco. It's not just about
Then,
ancient Mauritania. But go ahead, bro.
but then you like this is what I'm saying, right? Like then you would have to define ancient Morocco and the empire, right? So like, and that's I know we're veering off. It's just part of a little debate that's going on, and we kind of touching on it right now while we're on the air. We just said we was going to come on and have discussions anyway. I want people to be clear. We are not fighting to have
And
the
we are
name
not pushing
more.
no Moorish.
Yeah, we're
Please,
not
thank
doing
you.
that.
I am not.
It's,
Listen, you don't.
it's,
You
it's,
never hear me do nothing like that.
it's just a part of a discussion that's going on, and we're just talking about it on the air. We understand what our political status is. This book right here was written in 1883, The Discovery of America and Outgrowth of the Conquest of the Moors by the Spaniards. I have, man, where's my book? I got a bunch of books. And they're probably in my room. I just got a bunch of books that deal with the subject. I have years and years and years of research on this subject,
I
right?
got a question too, bro, from
Mhm.
my brother DJ Faze. He asked, quick question: if you asked a so-called elite pink person, could you change the words white and black? Would he allow people to call him black? Do you know what the main agenda is for chess? Why would anyone ever give us reparations? Why would the pyramids and caves be hidden in the Grand Canyon? Why would we be taught a language from another species of people? Well, he's asking a number of questions. A number of questions. But I'll just to touch on the part about white and black. Would he allow people to call him black? The fact of the matter is, Europeans would allow people to call him black if there was something beneficial in it, as we saw with that European guy who found out that he had like either a black ancestor or an enslaved black ancestor somewhere generations back in his line, and tried to pretend that he was going to now classify as a black person in order to qualify for certain set asides that the government had put there for quote unquote minorities or black people. So yeah, it depends. You got a lot of people, a lot of jokers that'll play all kind of games depending on what is in it that they can benefit from.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing. The game is now they don't have to be called black. That's why they invented the term minority, so they could allow
That's
people that are not
right.
necessarily. So you don't have to be black to get whatever set aside that was
Come on,
meant
brother.
to go to black people.
They had their women classified as a minority group, white women,
they even though they're the majority population on the country.
and they allow their women are able, as a minority group, their women are able to access minority set asides, particularly like contracts when it comes down to contracting. That's one of the things that Don People is so crazy. Don Peoples even talked about that in his interview. He was talking about how white women, being classified as a minority group, are able to access contracts because he's in contracting, because he's like he's a real estate developer, and so he's able to see from his own experience the fact that white men are able to benefit off of these minority labels by way of having their women classified as such, and the women get the contracts and then turn them over to the husband. The husband still is the one benefiting, and the white man, so to speak, the white man, the pink man, as brother DJ Faze call him, is still benefiting off of minority set asides.
You know, you were saying something, Josh?
Yeah, I just want to say, we got to go back to the context of like in the real tangible application of why white and black was made to be delineated. And I would argue that one of the main reasons, and this is something that was brought up by Theodore Allen in the Adventure of the White Race, and it's commonly understood in history. I mean, you can go to the Smithsonian in DC, the African American Smithsonian, and they pointed out, and that is Bacon's Rebellion. And when they saw the people that were the Negroes, and they saw the quote unquote white folks or people of various European ethnicities come together to fight for a common cause, pushing back against the elites. After the results of that made them rethink things and, further solidify a racialized hierarchy. And they pretty much wanted to aggregate blackness and aggregate whiteness, for the purposes of securing a higher floor, basically to make the white man's floor the black man's ceiling, And if you think of it that way, that's the real tangible application of the racial hierarchy in America. And that's so when you think of it that way, you got to understand that that's just how you got to look at everything. That's how you got to look at everything. You don't get caught up in the color. Don't get caught up in nothing else. The whole point is to establish a hierarchy where, the lowest white man is higher than the highest black man. That was the original intent. So I just wanted to add that piece of context into it.
Indeed. I'll be having
All right, so
ways I want to go.
I see the comment. So what you want to go into now? You know what? One of the other books that we needed to touch on, and we don't have to do it tonight, is the book by Richard B. Moore. Right, this is an important book too.
That's right.
It's called "The Name Negro: Its Origin and Its Evil Use." For those who don't know about that book, get the book, read that book. The Name Negro: Its Origin and Evil Use by Richard B. Moore. This was published back in like 1964. I'm just going off the top. I think it's around 1964 or something like that. And this man is breaking down the history of the use of the word Negro as well as the word black. So I'm just saying, like, people have already done a lot of this work way before we even really got to it. You know what I mean? We have the book Light and Truth by Robert Benjamin Lewis, published in the 1840s, I think.
1844, I believe it is.
Robert Benjamin Lewis, Light and Truth.
I can pull some of that stuff. Like, this is what I'm. We used to debate this stuff all the time. And in a way, I'm glad we're having this conversation. We understand that blackness is a problem, and not necessarily for the reasons that I think that it's a problem, but because of how it is being basically weaponized against us, right? And that's
facts.
The basis. But I want to share something because you brought, this is my email, right? You brought up what Brother Faye said. So years ago, and this is from December 26, 2014. I just, kind of showing how far back we go with this research. But I had read this paper a few years before this. So I contacted the University of Massachusetts, and I requested a dissertation by a woman named Rita Reynolds, a Freedman woman. And the name of that dissertation is called, let me see if I have the exact, okay, here's the Wealthy Free Women of Color in Charleston, South Carolina during slavery. For those that have been following BTP, you've probably heard me speak about my mother, saying that my grandmother, may she rest in peace, and Allah bless her soul, used to say that we were Moors from South Carolina. And my mother would always say that, she never really paid no attention to that because she thought that it was just another last name. And one of the things that Rita Reynolds shows in this resource right here is this terminology of Moor and how it's applied to certain women in South Carolina, particularly free women in South Carolina. There's other links that you all see me pull up as well, but that's not what I want to show you right now. I was, at the time I was heavy on my Moor thing, so I said, thank you so much. It is, and I'm speaking with the librarian here. It is the history of the Moors in South Carolina that interests me. The name Moor is the true ethnic name for so-called Black people. Now, this was my belief back in those days. Please enjoy my exposition in this regard. And I sent him something that I had wrote on it, on the term Black and etc. You see Ali is in this, I think you in this piece as well, Ali. I seen you somewhere in here. There you go. You said got it. This was his response to me. He said, thank you for the article. I agree. Labeling people with quote unquote color names is stupid. I have my own joke about being white, making fun of the term by describing myself as one of the quote unquote pink people. Mike Davis. Let's go back and show you how Mike Davis looks,
Hey,
right?
bro, there you go. And one of my, let me tell you something. I took anthropology in college, right? My professor actually said the same exact thing this man said, the same exact thing. And not only did my professor say that, but Dr. John Henry Clark said that as well. That us
Do you
identify. I'm gonna go find it. I'm gonna go find the video.
let me read this. If you can pull that up, like we want to do this for a specific reason because we want us to look at Blackness a little bit differently. Again, this is not, we're not trying to be coercive. We are doing what we always do on BTP. We are being educational. So let's go to page 36, the prerequisite cases in the book White by Law. This is some interesting history here. Let me see, where do I want to start? Okay, it says this question does not permit the tautological response that few sought naturalization as Blacks because during the period there were few quote unquote Black immigrants. As just mentioned, many who arrived here in the second half of the 19th century did not fit neatly into either the white or Black category. Thus, the quote unquote race of the immigrants does not explain the overwhelming predominance of quote unquote white person cases. Indeed, some immigrant groups, for example, the Chinese, were initially characterized as Black, suggesting that for some, attempting to naturalize as a quote unquote white person was the more difficult route. According to Ronald Takaki, the Chinese migrants found that racial qualities previously assigned to Blacks quickly became Chinese characteristics. White workers referred to the Chinese as naggers instead of niggers. They naggers, N-A-G-U-R-S. And a magazine cartoon depicted the Chinese as a blood-sucking vampire with slanted eyes, a pigtail, dark skin, and thick lips. Like Blacks, the Chinese were described as heathen, morally inferior, savage, childlike, and lustful. Unsurprisingly, this early social treatment of the Chinese as akin to Blacks also found legal expression. For example, in the 1854 case, People versus Hall, the California Supreme Court heard the appeal of a white defendant challenging his conviction for murder. He appealed on the grounds that he was convicted only through the testimony of a Chinese witness, and that this testimony should have been excluded under an 1850 statute, providing that, quote, no black or mulatto person or Indian shall be allowed to give evidence in favor of or against a white man. And for those of you that follow Brother Chris Largenton's Twitter spaces and have actually read the California report, this is something cited in that report, and this is something that the brother has also cited.
Damn, Naheem, I was just, that's so crazy. I just had it in my head. Yo, I just wanted to give a shout out to
Right.
brother Chris and C Jack out in Cali. Right. I want to give a shout out to NAASD out in Cali. They are doing some great work. Chris had a great space last night, y'all, on Twitter space. Twitter, go and check out that space. He was breaking down the that report from Pew Research last night. And I just got to say, I don't want to veer off too much, but this, the way we're moving right now, I mean, I'm just loving how we're moving. I'm loving how we're moving. It's camaraderie, it's unity, and we're building together. And this is how we're supposed to do. You know what I mean? It's not supposed to be a bunch of bickering. That's right. You know what I'm saying? It's we just need to keep building like this, man, and we can make some things happen. Make some things happen, man.
That's right. Shout out to our Cali fam. We got Sister Friday in the building. Let me just read this last line. It says the court agreed with the defendant that the Chinese witness was barred from testifying by the 1850 statute. Right. So the court said, yeah, this Chinese guy is black. Like,
that's
let
right.
That sink in. Just let that sink in. It says reasoning that Indians originally migrated from Asia, and so all Asians were conversely also Indian, and that at any rate, quote unquote, black was a genetic term encompassing all non-whites and thus included Chinese persons. Get this book right here, Family White by Law, Ian Haney Lopez, because he breaks down the prerequisite cases. He shows just how pseudo the racial classification system is, particularly white, and how it's malleable, right? It's something that morphs over time from a scientific thing or a pseudo-scientific thing to a legal thing or to something that's not so legal.
How does a person become black?
Or white?
How does a person become white?
Or red?
Or how do you become red?
Or yellow?
Let's say
red is not a official classification, but yeah.
Well, it was.
It was. Yeah. Remember, they was calling them the red man, right? There's documentation of the Europeans calling these. Come on.
I was just reading Blumenbach.
And the yellow man, they called the Asians yellow men. That's right. What Europeans was handing out colors to niggas, man. This is what's crazy about it. I'm like, why are we so attached to this shit when we know that they was handing out like, yo, this you? Yo, this you? Yo, this you? You know what I'm saying? Like what
are you going to call them Malaysians? Let's call them brown people.
Right. That's
now they're
brown
AAPI
races.
now.
Yeah, they AAPI now.
and it just to show you how.
But wait, Josh, I got a question. How did the Latinos become brown when the Middle Easterns was brown first?
And then how did they become white and then off of white or white at the same time? It's real confusing.
When you read the Dred Scott dissents, just we've been through a lot of this information. There's so much stuff that I want to pull up right now.
I just gotta say,
I'm refraining.
This right here, this whole conversation, just like you said, it's malleable, it's fickle, it's really like arbitrary to some extent. And it just even the fact that they're saying we're having listening sessions, we were thinking about revising this. in how they put the disclaimer. This is not meant to be
Scientific.
scientific or anthropological in nature. So what is it? So
Social.
basically, and they can just define the terms as they see fit, or the people can demand of them or petition them, and then they can decide on how they're gonna do it. But you know what? You can't really do that to. You can't really do that to freedmen. You can't do that to ancestry. I can't wake up one day and decide, no, I'm actually gonna be. Yesterday I was of one ancestry, and today I'm of another ancestry. Yesterday my people came from you know India, and today they came from Australia. Yesterday no, yesterday my people fought in the Civil War and was built the country through chattel slave labor, and then tomorrow they're immigrants that came over last week. No, that doesn't. That's you can't do that with American freedmen. You can't do that with what we're talking about. So that's what we're talking about, the specificity that we have dealing with ancestry, and
Come on, man.
that create a new ethnic group. That's not something that you can change at your whim. You
That's a
you you
fact.
you cannot change the descent nature of man like that.
That's a fact, bro. At the time of emancipation, 1865, and again, I say 1865 because that's when the supreme law of the land legalized the status nationally of freedmen. At the time of emancipation, 1865, you had about 4 million freed men and women, about 4 million of them, right? So that's a finite number. There's nothing that anybody can do to change that. The fact that it happened, there's nothing that anybody can do to change that. It is what it is. It's set in stone, right? And like Josh is saying, you can't play games with that the way you can play the way Rachel Dolezal can play games with blackness. You can't play games with that with the way the white supremacist dude who found a black ancestor tried to do so that he can get benefits that were set aside for minorities and black people. You can't play games with that Freedman thing like that because it's too etched in stone. It's too it's too finite. It's too fixed. There's nothing anybody can do about what that was. It is what it is. You had a certain group of people who were slaves, and in 1865, their status changed from slave to freed. It's that simple. It is what it is. Nothing can be done about it. Nothing. Right? Now you can play games with who was a Negro, who's not a Negro, who's colored, who's not colored, who's mulatto, who's not mulatto, who's black, who's not black, who's African American, who's not African American. You can play all kinds of games with that. But you can't play games with the freedmen thing because there was only a specific set amount of people that applied to. Period, point blank. Period, point blank. On top of the fact that the most important part of it is that it's something that can allow us to proceed further in the reparations conversation because it's not about race. It's about a certain group of people who possess this status based on the former status of being a slave. It's that simple.
That's right. I'm I'm trying to find some of my old research pieces, and I want to, there's so much going on in, especially like in the Twitter sphere. We have people coming at us over the term Negro, right? Because they feel that we should use the term Negro as opposed to the term American freedman. So
Or
what up?
black. Or black. They don't
Or
like they
black.
don't like black either. They prefer Negro.
Yeah, they prefer Negro, which was just absolutely hilarious to me. But this is what I want to do because we brought up Robert Benjamin Lewis, and I want to share something, right? What was this early term? How was this early term Negro used, for instance? So we see that this is from page 339 and 340 of Robert Benjamin Lewis's book, A Light and Truth. And he says, Negro is derived from the Latin term niger, meaning black. And it's funny because today's etymologist say that the term Negro is of unknown derivation, and I believe the term Niger, which is absolutely hilarious to me. But anyway, it says Niger, a Latin word, was formerly used by the Moors, the old Romans, to designate any black inferior object, a plant, a marsh, flat, moist ground, bog, or animal. So this term was created for use, derogatory use, basically. You know, if you've seen an animal back in those
Facts.
days, and this is 1844,
Put
that
that
book
back
was
up. Can
written.
you put that back up real quick? Just
Oh,
the
okay,
screenshot you
hold on.
just had.
Damn, I closed it. Hold
Oh, it's
on,
all
hold on.
good. Don't worry about it.
But
It's
I'm
all
gonna
right.
pull it. I'll pull it back up. Let me pull it, the one I got up right now, and read it, and I'll go right back to that one. This is David Walker, who was a abolitionist. So he lived between 1796 and 1830. So this brother was speaking before Robert Benjamin Lewis wrote that book, right? So it's Niger,
This is from David Walker's appeal.
David Walker's appeal, right? So Niger is a word. Now this is contemporaneous with their time. Niger is a word derived from the Latin, which was used by the old Romans to designate inanimate beings, which were black, such as soot, pot, wood, house, etc. Also animals, which they considered inferior to the human species, as a black horse, cow, hog, bird, dog, etc. So I assume when he says black horse, he also means black cow, black hog, black bird, black dog, because Niger was understood to mean black in those days, right? So, you know, and I'm gonna pull that back up right now, Ali. Let me see. Did I close it? Oh yeah, I did close it. So, you know, again, we're just here to give some education on usage of these terms and why we feel that they're in a way. These terms are in a way because they're leading to debates about things that are not necessarily relative, based on the fact that people, you know, have emotional connections to them, and we don't care because we're not debating with people on that. Yeah, go ahead, Ali. It's up.
No, I just thought it was interesting, right? The Niger, right? It says Negro is derived from the Latin term Niger, meaning black, right? And you know Niger is the origin of the word nigger. You
That's
know
right.
this. So
That's right.
Niger, a Latin word, was formerly used by the Moors, who he refers to as the old Romans, to designate any black inferior object. Inferior object. So this goes towards what I was saying when the Arabic speakers came into Africa and labeled that portion of Africa Bilad as Sudan. The root word of the word Sudan is the word Sud. And that word Sud in the Arabic language does mean to denigrate,
To blacken,
to
to
blacken.
sully, to dirty up, basically.
So
It
if
means what? It means what? Denigrate or denigrate?
But wait, that term also, that denigrate term, if I'm not mistaken, has elements of Negro in it as well. If I'm, it's been a minute since I looked at it. Ali could correct me on that.
Yeah, denigrate.
Hmm. So, you know, the
hold up. Let me share this real quick. Let me share my screen, bro, because you
go ahead, bro.
we're gonna look at denigrate and its relationship to blackness and Negro. Because see, I think that people believe that we're kind of like just coming off the cuff with this stuff. All right, this is the etymology dictionary online. This is the etymology dictionary online, right? They use several primary and secondary sources for this particular dictionary. Now, look at this real quick. Y'all, can you see this?
Yep, yep.
All right, denigrate. Remember, The root word of the word Sudan is the word sud, S-U-D, which means to denigrate or to blacken or to sully. Okay, so now let's see what denigrate means. 1520s, to sully or to stain the reputation or the character, etc. From Latin, denigratus, past participle of denigrari, to blacken, to defame. From D, completely, see D, plus nigger, stem of Niger, black, also see negro, which is of unknown origin according to these etymologists. The figurative sense is oldest in English. The literal sense of blacken, male, black, make black is recorded from make black. It's from 1620s. But denigrate as a past participle adjective, darkened, discolored, is attested from early 15th century. So the fact of the matter is, in the Arabic language, the equivalent of this word denigrate is the word sud, which is the root of the word Sudan. So when these people come into Africa, they come into Africa with a certain opinion about the inhabitants of that country, of that land. Put that land. I ain't gonna say country. They have a certain opinion of the inhabitants of that land. We know what happened. There was something called the trans-Saharan slave trade, huh? After the Arabs did it, the Europeans came in and called it Negro land, the Latin speakers. The same area corresponding to the same area that the Arabic speakers call
Teach.
Bilad as Sudan.
Teach.
The Europeans come in and call it Negro land. And what did they do? They took them same people and started enslaving them, bringing them into Europe, into Lisbon and places like that, and then later into the Americas. But I told you in the beginning that the word Negro had two connotations to it. It had two meanings. It had served a dual purpose. This is something that Richard B. Moore speaks about in his book, The Name Negro, Its Origin and Evil Use. He talks about the fact that the word Negro had a dual meaning and a dual purpose. It described the complexion of the people for the Spanish speakers or the Latin speakers. Then it also denoted the fact that these people were a slave class. This is a fact. I didn't make this up. This is their word. This is their word. Black is their word. Black ain't no indigenous word to any Native Americans or any African tribe of people. That's a Germanic word. You can easily look this up and see the etymology of the word goes back to the Proto-Indo-European word bleg. This is not our word. So it's not native to us. It was applied. It was applied to these people, and it erased their former identities. This is a fact. This is why people can't, the ones who accept it and have adopted it, can't really tell you, on top of the fact that you're a mixed people now, you got all of these different things going on, but it's hard to pinpoint stuff because they don't erase so much stuff using various tactics, or as a certain teacher would say, European psychology. Huh?
Exactly.
These are not our words, man. I didn't make up the word black. I didn't make up its denotation or connotation. That's not my word. That doesn't come from any language that's native to my people, the majority of the people that make up my ancestry. And my ancestry genetics tells me that the large majority of the genetics that I share are with people of West Africa. Very, very small amount of people from Native American ancestry, and the very small amount is like 0.7%. 0.7% that comes back as Native, related to any kind of Native American group, and the Native American people that they identified as being relative to my family came from Mexico. It's some Mexicans or something like that. So all I'm saying is this: the large majority of the genetics that I share with any other people of the world are people from West Africa. That's just the fact. That's the fact. That's my family. I ain't telling nobody about their family. Your family's your family. My family's my family.
Indeed, indeed. So we just wanted to get on here tonight and go in a little bit. That's all. We wanted to talk about the OMB thing. Matter of fact, let me pull this article up Let's pull this up before we get out of here so people could know what's going on with what the Arabs are doing. Even though I touched on it earlier, I just want to give a visual and a point of reference for the family. Make sure y'all hit that like button if y'all didn't hit the like button already. If you want to support the channel, you could Cash App Be the Power, use the super chat. You can make a donation through the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen's website, usadof.org, which is in the description. Y'all know that we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we trying to put some work in for the family, and we believe that the work is starting to bear fruit, and we are working on some other things that we won't we won't discuss on air right now. But things are moving. Things are moving way more over the past couple of months than they have been maybe over the past 2 years. But that's what happens when you start going. You roll a snowball downhill. Not only does it get bigger, it also picks up speed, and that's what's going on right now, family. So we are trying to create an avalanche. So as you can see, Arab Americans tired of being invisible in federal data demand to identify as MENA, not white. Not white. It's interesting. While other people.
All right. Okay.
What happened?
Really? No, I was just saying that's interesting that's actually met with like some type of credence. It doesn't seem to be a problem.
That's right.
It's
It
not.
doesn't seem to be divisive.
Even though it'll work to disaggregate whiteness, but that's, hey, I'm glad they're doing it.
When I seen this, it was just so many things. And Naheem was like, "What should we title this video?" And what did I say, brother Naheem?
I forgot.
BTP is always right.
Oh yeah. I ain't wanna say that. They'd be like, those guys.
I know, but
It was a
they
joke,
don't
but
like you saying it. They don't like you
yeah,
saying it.
no, not
When I
me.
say it,
I
maybe
wouldn't say
maybe they
that.
feel a little bit.
Oh no, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
Yeah,
Shout
I'm
out to
saying it.
hold
I'm
on.
saying it just as a
Shout
joke.
out, no, no. Shout out to our brother DJ FaZe, whom many of you have seen in the Michael Wayne TV interviews. I've been sharing them interviews out like crazy, and I believe FaZe has been in every last one of them. I shared 2 of them out. I think one today and one last night. Showing how Bronxdale has been renamed the Sotomayor houses. Bronxdale has been renamed the Sotomayor houses. Like, this is just a whole Hispanic takeover right now. We also interviewed our brother DJ FaZe on the Be the Power platform. I believe that was about a year ago, and we hopefully we can
Yeah, it
get
was
the
something like that.
brother in a Twitter space. I think that would be powerful because the Twitter spaces is popping, right? You see
Right.
Jay-Z went on the Twitter space about a week ago or so, 2 weeks ago, to explain his verse, and Ari Melba and all of those people were in that space. The Twitter spaces are popping, but this is where we hold class at on our YouTube channel. So we may have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in our Twitter spaces, but here is where we do our research at, and it's for is basically for posterity. It's for posterity.
Hey,
So
before we leave
mhm.
out, it's something I want to show, a screenshot, but you can finish with this Arab American piece.
Well, I'm gonna just I'll just run through it. I'm not gonna stay on it. Many Middle Eastern and North African Americans are hopeful they will finally be recognized by the federal government, including in the U.S. Census, after years of their community largely being ignored in official data. The U.S. Office the U.S. Office of Management and Budget is working to overhaul how agencies collect data about Americans, a move that many say could result in a new category for people of Middle Eastern or North African background. Arab Americans have long fought to persuade government officials to adopt the racial category referred to as MENA as a part of its standard practice. I'll read the quote. Quote, it is instrumental that we recognize MENA communities and address the compounded systemic inequities that we have historically faced and continue to face, said Salma Mohammed, Partnership and Capacity Building Specialist for the Arab American Family Support Center in New York City. Quote, there is a systemic inequality that renders our voices often invisible. Ha ha, ain't that something? Well, if they can say that, imagine what we're going to say. And this is why we had the meeting last Sunday. We were supposed to have a meeting last night, but I was just trying to kind of wrap my head around everything on how we should proceed. And we want to build with the organizations that are doing stuff in this space, especially.
Yes.
We want to build with CJEC. We want to build with
U.S. Freedmen,
NAASD,
the U.S.
U.S.
Freedmen.
Freedmen
Shout out to
Project.
Devon and Tony.
That's right. That's right. Who else? The Freedmen descendants in
Marlon.
Chicago, Marlon Watson.
That's right.
That's right. Arthur Ward.
DMV Freeman.
The DMV Freedmen.
DMV Freedmen. Roz, what up?
That's
Yep.
right. That's right. So we want to start building with because like this may be the only time that we can get this thing right. This may be for another. When will they do the next one? If the last one was in 2017, the next one will be in 2037. If my math is correct, we don't have that long to wait.
Word.
This is lightning in a bottle. So we have been invisible because African American has not been seen as an ethnic group in this country. It has just been seen as a racial category. And we've played the Chemerinsky piece. I mean, even before Chemerinsky
Yeah, that was
gave,
devilish though. I ain't even gonna lie. To use Africa, to misuse African American that
Mhm.
way, knowing that the intention of the people who were advocating its usage did not intend for it to be a racial classification, but for
That's right.
Europeans to force that into the racial classification was devilish.
They're very devilish. And this is what I'm saying, right? And we we've been saying this since we've been saying this stuff for years. For those that are familiar with this channel, when it was Moorish Science TV, you can go all the way back and see all the videos that I have up. They're still on this channel. We were touching on the issue of blackness back then. And we seen how problematic it was. And when we came into space and we seen certain individuals talking what they were talking, although we were on reparations for years, we sought to align with certain individuals. But we came to find out that they weren't really about reparations. They were about something else. And so, we had to come in and keep pushing the message forward along with others who are also aligned with certain individuals that wear a certain name that we just call the hashtag. And now look, those people who aligned based on the fact that they were serious about reparations are getting things done, particularly in California. And like I said, we are working on some other things right now, and we're going to see how those things play out over the next. I'll see you, Otis. We're going to see you over the next couple of see what happens over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, go ahead, Ali.
I just want to read something. This is from a piece called "Increasing Multicultural Understanding," page 106. It says that African Americans, see, this is speaking to the intention. The intention is what's important. African American refers to descendants of enslaved people who
Black,
are from the United States,
right?
right? See, this is
Enslaved black people.
enslaved black people
Mhm.
who are from the United States. The reason we use an entire continent, Africa, instead of a country, example like Irish Americans can use Ireland, is because slave masters purposefully obliterated tribal ancestry, language, and family units in order to destroy the spirit of the people they enslaved, thereby making it impossible for their descendants to trace their history prior to being born into slavery. Now, it's virtually impossible. You know, you can do ancestry tracing through your genetics, right? But it's something else I want to show real quick, and I don't know if we have time. I know you want to get out of here, bro.
Now, go ahead, go in, bro,
Um,
go in. We can extend
um,
it a little bit.
Let me see, Chrome tab. So I want to bring up something from the Associated Press back in 19. It was published in 1988. I don't know why it's not. Do you see it? I don't see it.
No,
Hold
it's
on.
not popping up.
Let me let me refresh this. Okay, so here's the Associated Press page. Let me try it one more time and see if it will work this time. If it doesn't, then never mind. Hold on. It's an article called Leaders. Hold on, let me scroll up so you can see it. Leaders say blacks want to be called African Americans. December 20th, 1988 of the Associated Press. Chicago, AP, a group of black leaders, including the Reverend Jesse Jackson, says members of their race would prefer to be called African Americans rather than blacks. Just as we were called colored, we were not that, and then Negro, but not that. To be called black is just as baseless, Jackson said at a news conference Monday after a meeting of the black leaders. To be called African Americans has cultural integrity, he said. It puts us in our proper historical context. Every ethnic group in this country has a reference to some land base, some historical cultural base. African Americans have hit that level of cultural maturity. Jesse Jackson was joined by former Gary, Indiana Mayor Richard Hatcher, National Urban Coalition President Ramona Edelin, Gloria Toote, and former Assistant Secretary of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, and others.
Wait, so it wasn't just Jesse Jackson.
No.
Oh, okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Then he goes on and gives an example. There are Armenian Americans and Jewish Americans and Arab Americans and Italian Americans. I'm going to add some. There are Haitian Americans and Jamaican Americans and Trinidadian Americans and Barbadian Americans and Dominican Americans and Puerto Rican Americans. And with a degree of accepted and reasonable pride, they connect their heritage to their mother country and where they are now. The black leaders meeting to discuss national goals said they would meet again in Washington March 3rd. Many of the leaders at the meeting, including representatives of the National Black Republicans Council, the National Black County Officials, and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, said the term African Americans would be a psychological lift. So you had a bunch of people. You even had black Republicans, right? The Reverend Willie Barrow, president of Operation Push, says she will start using the term immediately. Said, I'm African American, just like the Polish are Polish American and Italians are Italian American, she said. It's something we've all agreed upon, right? This wasn't thrust upon anybody. Ain't nobody make anybody start calling themselves African Americans. It's something that we've all agreed upon, and it's just great. So, I mean, we could stop. We could stop there, but I just wanted people to see, because some people think that the term African American was one that was imposed, and that's just not the historical fact. People agreed to use it and started using it and adopted it on their own accord. No one forced that on us. Further, as Josh pointed out, the term African American has a historical root in this country going back into the late 1700s as far as we've found so far. So it's not something that originally applied to a bunch of people. It applied to a specific group of people, meaning those ones particularly that have African ancestry who may have been imported for the purposes of slave labor. That's what I wanted to point out. And then I don't know if you want to see the John Henry Clark piece, but
We
I
can
have
pull that
that
up.
piece too.
Pull that up. But I want to hit flicks. Let me pull up what hit flicks say. All those are countries and not continents.
Just explained it.
Arab is not a country, right? But the Arab Americans. But anyway, because you have Arabs in Egypt, you have Arabs all over the Middle East. and parts of Africa. But he says all of those are countries and not continents. I've never called myself African American, only used Black American. And I remember seeing this conference on the news. So I want to be clear, right? We're not advocating for usage of the term, but we are correcting the misconception. This is what we do. I'm not a fan. I said it earlier. I'm not a fan of the term African American. I'm not a fan of the term Black. But I understand. Even when I was in the Moorish movement, I understood that this is what's on the record. There's no Moorish American box for me to check, right? When I was going to fill out applications, there just wasn't. There was no box to check.
Show this one more time. All right, so in this piece from 2013, it explains, right? Increasing multicultural understanding. It explains. He says the reason we use an entire continent, namely Africa, instead of a country like what he was just talking about, is because slave masters purposefully obliterated tribal ancestry, and tribal ancestry is not just African. If you want to claim Native American tribes, that too. But the problem is, a lot of people can't link themselves to these people either. They wind up linking themselves to the five civilized tribes because those are the people who had slaves.
That's right.
But anyway, purposefully obliterated tribal ancestry, language, and family units in order to destroy the spirit of the people they enslaved, thereby making it impossible for their descendants to trace their history prior to being born into slavery. So the point of it is, at that time, right, because you're talking about in 1980 something, there wasn't this mass use of DNA to check your ancestry, to check whether or not you have African ancestry, whether or not you have European ancestry, whether or not you have Native American. You didn't have that back in the 80s when they decided on this terminology African American. So they used the entire continent because you had multiple groups, multiple people from various ethnic groups from that continent who were transported into the Americas. Not all of them came to North America, but transported into the Americas from various ethnic backgrounds who were forced to then mix with each other. So now it's not even just a thing of your people was Wolof. Now you got Wolof, you got Yoruba, you got all of these things mixed up into your ancestry, and these are all people who came from that continent. So for them at that time, without the help of any kind of DNA genetic testing to help link them back to anything, it made sense for them to use the African continent, being that so many people had ethnic ancestry going back to that continent by way of the slave trade. That's all, man. It's really simple. In my opinion, it's simple to understand. I don't know why it seems complex.
And let me just pull up my own DNA test from 23andMe. Okay, how do you find? Yeah, and they switched this thing. Oh, there you go. Just to show people like what we mean, right? So I'm 89% sub-Saharan African, and they break down that 89%. So they start in West Africa, meaning most of my genetic makeup comes from West Africa, 71.1%. Out of that, 25.6% is Nigerian, 23.9% is Ghanaian, Liberian, and Sierra Leonean. 9.2% of that is Senegambian and Ghanaian. Am I saying that?
Ghanaian.
Ghanaian. I said the first one wrong. I think I said Ghanaian for the
first one is Ghanaian.
Yeah. And broadly West African 12.
No. Ghanaian and Guinean. That's Guinean. What I think. Ghanaian. The second one is Ghanaian. The first one is I don't know, man. Whatever. Ghanaian and Guinean. I would say the second one is Guinean and the first one is Ghanaian. That's the way I would pronounce it.
Yeah. Congolese and Southern East African 17. So, it's like, okay, I'm looking at all of this stuff, right? And it's like, okay, do I just pick the Nigerian part?
Any Native American in there, brother?
Yeah, oh yeah. But let's so European, I got 9.8%. I might as well run through it. 9.8% European. My mother says that must come from my father's side because ain't no white people on our side of the family. I'll be cracking up every time I pull this up and I see this. I think about her saying that to me several times. So it breaks that down. Northwestern European 9%, which breaks down to French and German, yada yada yada. So then we get down to Indigenous American, 0.6%. That's it. 0.6% Indigenous American. So
Does it give you any general location where, like, where people, the people that you might share the genetics with, the Native American, Indigenous American genetics, where these people are located today?
okay, let's see. All right, it took me out of this screen. So let's all right.
Don't worry about it. If it's don't,
No,
it ain't
no,
that big a
no,
deal.
no. I think this is good teaching. This is good teaching right here. So it says, Naheem, your DNA suggests that 0.6% of your ancestry is indigenous American. So, yeah, but it doesn't really. Okay, Nuevo America, the genetic landscape of the Americas was dramatically altered. I don't want to get into all of that. So I guess this is giving me a breakdown that yellow Native American. So that's what was in my profile. That, but it's only 0.6%. So somewhere in my bloodline, somehow there's some
Testing,
zero.
testing.
Huh? What you said, bro?
He said testing, but
Oh,
go ahead,
oh, oh.
finish up.
Yeah. So somehow I got only 0. So that's why I say I don't call myself by certain names because this is not predominant in my ancestry. It's trace, and we don't know how that trace gets there. Was it because some uh, slave master mixed with some Native American person and then raped one of my ancestors? I don't know. It's like, how does that little 0.6% get there? We don't know really, but it's not enough of it for me to claim it at all.
How come you
Not
don't
enough.
claim to be white?
Exactly.
Why not claim to be a white man?
You
Since you
know,
have
9.8%.
you got more of that than the Indians, so you might as well. Like, this is what's crazy to me. Like, people be talking about I'm I'm Native American because yada yada yada, right? My third great grandmother was some kind of Cherokee princess or something, right? It's always something like that. But the thing is, right? They wind up having more. They share more genetic material with Europeans than they do with Indian, but they won't call themselves whites or won't call themselves Europeans or claim any of that. That's what's weird to me, man.
Exactly.
It's the weirdest thing. Anyway, go ahead. I'm just
I
ranting.
mean, and obviously, because the fact that that is the class of people that was put at the top of the hierarchy to oppress the other classes. So, if you identify with that, what you're saying is, uh, you know, I'm siding with that group of people. I'm investing my identity in that, so I have to be in alignment with them. And if you don't get any of the benefits of that, doesn't make sense to do. If
I
you
got the
have
clock
no
thing.
Yeah, yeah. If you have no affinity, if you have no affiliation, if you don't rock with none of those family members, if you don't have no stake in that, if you don't have stand to benefit for any of that, then you won't do that. So they skip over that and they go to the next one because you don't want to be associated with the what is seen as the bottom group, and you want to be something. Well, we're not even gonna get into that, but that's another thing. Go ahead.
You want me to play it?
Oh yeah, go ahead, bro.
All right.
Yeah, it's not.
Hang on one second. I know.
Okay, okay.
All right, here you go. Nope. Hold on. Where is it? Where is it? Why? Hold on, man. What's the deal? Oh, my bad. I'm on the wrong tab.
I figured
I'm
that
tripping.
because I heard Josh.
Right,
from
right.
the delay in the background.
Here you go. My bad.
We are a nation within,
Hold on, take it back.
we are a nation within a nation in this country searching for a nationality. And once we find our nationality and serve that nationality, we'll do for ourselves what needs to be done. All ethnic groups in this country understand they got a nationality. Because you answer to such stupid words like Negro and color and black. You have no nationality. Negro is not a nationality. Some lazy Portuguese or Spaniard took an adjective and made a noun out of it. Colored is not a nationality. Black tells you how you look, but it don't tell you who you are. Right. The name of a people must relate them instantaneously to land, history, and culture.
All right, that's enough. So anyway, I mean, he's talking about nationality. We were really talking um, ethnicity, which is relative to nationality. That's an actual fact. They're relative terms. Every every person who has an ethnic name in this country, whether it is Irish American, whether it is Italian American, whatever it is, utilize the national name of their country of origin as a part of their new ethnic name within the United States. So, from the perspective of the relationship between ethnicity and nationality, I can understand exactly what he was talking about.
Especially at a time when we didn't feel like Americans, right? That's why, I still honor Noble Drew Ali in that regard because he basically was one of the early pioneers that said you are American. You are American. And that's why we hear John Henry Clark saying what he's saying about nationality for the most part. And even in that, in our understanding of our nationality as Americans, the term American freedman becomes that much more important as a political status. We've had some debate. We've debated among ourselves. Should should American freedmen be used as an ethnic identifier, or should we strictly keep it as uh, a political status because that's what it is?
I
Yeah,
got
go
the
ahead.
other one for you if you want to see that. Dr. John Henry Clark, who is himself a freedman, speaking on the history of the Moors and who they were. You want me to run that one?
Oh yeah,
All right, let me run it. I'm gonna run it real quick. Here you go. Let me know if you can hear it, because I don't know if I was sharing the. Hold on.
yeah. The audio was there.
All right, share.
Oh yeah, but we heard it. I wonder if the people heard it.
Oh well, hold on.
I think.
No, we heard it. I heard it.
Did the people? What? Yeah, were the people able to hear that?
It should have been.
Y'all say something in the chat if y'all was able to hear that last video I played. What they say?
It's like a 20-second delay. I believe they heard it though, because
I
I
hope
didn't hear
so.
nobody saying that they couldn't hear it.
I hope they heard it. All right.
Yeah, they heard it. They heard it.
All right. Let me know if you can hear this one as it's playing. I'm gonna play it now. Okay? We straight?
Yo, yeah, go ahead, bro.
Out of the Western Sudan would come a great general, Tarak Ben Zad, Jabral Tarak. He would discover a weakness in Spain fighting the Goths and the Visigoths. and the Vandals fighting among themselves. The dissident element in Spain would do something white people rarely ever do. They would sneak across into Africa and tell the Africans how weak the whites are, and said they are so weak, if you want to conquer them, it's an easy thing to do. Cabral would send a testing army, about 10,000, just to test our lines. You find it is easy. Then later, he would send 60,000. He'd take Spain. Now this is purely an African conquest. You are not dealing with the Arab conquest of Spain at first, because the Arabs were not there at first. The initial conquest of Spain was African, not Arab. That army came from the Senegambia, now Senegal, and parts of what is now Mauritania. And when they moved over and conquered Spain, Madame Bourguiba has written a book on it that bears the name Tariq bin Zayed. The Rock of Gibraltar is named after him. It's the hill or the mountain of Tariq. Gibraltar is a corruption of his name, Jabral. And she describes the army going into Spain. She says the army was black as ink. The general was blacker still. Meaning the general was the only one riding a white horse. So his blackness against that whiteness looked blacker than the rest of them. But the horse was better dressed than the kings of Europe, with silk and brocade.
Islamic armies, their ranks dominated by African converts, defeat the Romans and push on to the continent of Europe. In the process, they capture Spain. There, the Africans and Arabs create a rich, cultured, and powerful empire. So powerful, it endures for 500 years.
The achievement of the Arabs at this time is they have driven the Europeans out of the Mediterranean. The European now must go back into Europe. They have no empires, no great connections outside of Europe. And because of this, they ultimately would go into a period called the Dark Ages.
Militarily, the Africans took over Spain, and militarily, the Africans held Spain until 1240, while the Arabs did come in. But the military hold on Spain was African. Now let's look at the Africans and the Arabs, that combination called Moors in Spain. What did they do?
For a while in history, there was only two great universities. The University of Saint-Corry at Timbuktu and the University of Salamanca in Spain. And the African was solely in charge of the one at Saint-Corry and partly in charge of the one at Salamanca.
They built public schools. They built public baths. They gave Spain the greatest civilization it has known before or since. They built a great university, Salamanca. They translated.
You know what? I was gonna let it play longer, but it's all good because it was something that I wanted. There's something that he was gonna say that I wanted to be heard, but the truth is, people can look the video up themselves. The name of the video is there. It says John H. Clark speaks on the 8th century Moorish invasion of Europe. So you can look this video up on YouTube and listen to the rest of it. There was something I wanted to play, but we don't have to let it keep going.
Indeed. So, fam, we're going to start winding this thing down. Before we do that, I'm going to share one more thing And because I want to, before we get out of here, I want people to know that we're placing emphasis on the status of our people as American freedmen in this country. This is from the Congressional Record, the Senate S10499 to S10500. It's actually a debate about affirmative action, and it reads, the most important example involved the Freedmen's Bureau, created in 1865 as a means of providing special benefits and assistance for African Americans. The opponents of the Freedmen's Bureau Acts attacked the Bureau on the grounds that it would apply to members of only one race. The response was that discrimination was justified in the interest of equality. Quote, we need a Freedmen's Bureau, said one supporter. Quote, not because these people are Negroes, but because they are men who have been for generations despoiled their rights.
Come on, man.
Did we get the Freedmen's Bureau?
You did.
We did. Let me read that again. We need a Freedmen's Bureau, said one supporter, not because these people are Negroes, but because they are men who have been for generations despoiled their rights. We are still despoiled our rights till this day. We're still going through a lot of BS. I never read the rest of it, so I'll do it now. Curiously, fundamentalists don't investigate the pertinent history, and they do not. But one of the explicit goals of the 14th Amendment was to provide secure constitutional grounding for the Freedmen's Bureau's acts. It is peculiar at best to think that the 14th Amendment prohibited the very types of legislation it was designed to legitimate. Voting to strike down affirmative action programs, fundamentalists haven't offered a hint of a reason to think that such programs are inconsistent with the original understanding. So, there's a lot to unpack in that statement as
Absolutely,
well.
Man.
And I wanted to just focus on the fact that American freedmen is a political status. It is a term that I use in place of all others. I believe that it is the most powerful of the terms. And I could make an argument for the term more, because I can trace it. Ali just played the great elder John Henry Clark breaking down some Moorish history and the descriptions of the Moors. And I have so much research, like the book, The Golden Age of the Moor. Like, that book is a compilation of articles by, or I should say contributions by 15 different scholars. One chapter is just references, sources. I think it's over 400 different sources, and that's the whole chapter of that particular book. Just one chapter. So, but that's another conversation. I'm not here to push the Moorish thing. I'm not here to push that. I'm here to push American freedmen. I'm here to push Lafayette Ward said, tell that to Stephen. Yeah, Stephen, brothers, that brother is, he's on his Democrat thing. And when you are playing party politics, there is an air of narcissism that you must adopt in order to play party politics. With those that play policy politics, which is very few, besides the people that are in certain parties trying to push specific policies to benefit them or their constituents, then, those that don't do party politics, they play this game a little bit differently. Our brother Logic says government is the game and politics is how it's played. So we just came on to talk about this tonight. We wanted to have a conversation about the OMB. We wanted to talk about race and blackness and whiteness. These two fictitious terms, they're fictional. Nobody's black, nobody's white, nobody's red, nobody's yellow. If anybody can be called a color that is in use, it's us, because we are in fact brown. Josh was like, he doesn't know what color we would ascribe to him, but it's really just the light version of brown. It's like a light tan, and we can use that. And we can use
Yeah,
that term.
that's a term that was already used with regard to the Moors when they talk about
Tawny.
the tanny or tawny Moors.
That's
That's a
right.
fact.
That's right. So we're gonna close it out, man. Brother Josh, you have anything you want to share before we get out of here?
Josh is gone.
Yeah, go ahead, brother Ali.
I just want to say peace to the family. Um, Peace to all of the reparationists. Peace to the CJEC family. Peace to the NASD family. Peace to the DMV Freedmen. Peace to the New York. I mean, not the New York. The New York Freedmen family, U.S. Freedmen Project. Um, Peace to my brother Marlon in the Chicago Freedmen. Uh, Brother Arthur Ward, Sister Cynthia, everybody up there. Um, Peace to the brother DJ Faze. Faze, we gotta do a Twitter space because this hip hop thing has become, and I'm sure you guys are at the root of this whole hip hop discussion and the things that you all have been explaining for the past few years on Michael Wayne's channel. Shout out to Michael Wayne for doing doing Allah's work for documenting uh, the history of the origin of hip hop as told by the people who were there, the baby Spades, the black Spades, you know what I'm saying, uh, the Green Eyed Genie, Charlie Rock, all of these different people, and their contributions to the dialogue. So peace to all of the people. Peace to Riri. Peace to Sister Shanna. Peace to everybody. Peace.
Oh yeah, man. Brother Lafayette Ward, the OG
Lafayette
Otis,
War, Otis. Yeah.
Hit
Hey man,
Flicks in the chat.
that's right.
Who else we got in here, man? There's a couple people dipping in and out tonight. But shout out to everybody that came through, and shout out to everybody that showed support. Josh, your mic up yet? Yeah,
Josh is gone.
yeah. All right, fam. So we leave you all with the motto of the platform, which is don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.